Hey, sorry, I don't know what happened. I lost Chris. I'm gonna try and reconnect with him. I guess this will be a two-part. Um, I'm gonna say it right now. Chris is a slow storyteller, so this will be a good two-part video. Hopefully Chris gets back on. I'm gonna try and connect with Chris and see. Maybe he won't get back on. I don't know. Sorry if we just lost some of your questions. We were just kind of getting up to date, and I got all excited about Gelato Vera. Waiting for Chris. So we'll add Chris. Hey.
Hey, am I back?
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
Okay,
It totally dropped.
yeah, your voice dropped out too. I guess we lost our connection there for a bit.
I think my excitement for Gelato Vera just kind of like crashed the whole thing.
Yeah, I also got very excited about Gelato Vera.
I hope they're doing good. You know, it's a horrible time for all these small businesses.
Oh man, I hope so too.
Cafe Moto, Porvita, all these places are, it's a bad time to try and be a small business.
Yes.
But so I think that gets us more up to date. So, I mean, you could jump in with some other stuff, but the first time I got a really healthy dose of your work was at the Rose in the adjacent building next to the Rose. I mean, I hung out with you before that and I knew of your work, but you had this really great solo exhibition at the Rose. And it was like, I was like, oh shit, this guy's for real. He's not just a hobby painter. You had large stuff. You had, writing on paper. You had little zines and you had all kinds of scale things. And they were really beautiful. They were framed nicely and presented really well. And that was a really exciting moment. I think that's when a lot of people started to get to know you a little bit better. You can tell me to shut up.
Thank you. Thank you for the compliments. I worked pretty hard
And
on
I
that
was
show.
living in
But
South
yeah, that was the first time. I mean, we were talking about gelato. Like I did a couple of little gelato shows, and just like I said, like group shows here and there for a while or something. I don't know when there was some point about 4 years ago or 5 years ago where I think like I don't know, I'd like gone back to limo driving, but the industry had kind of dried up. It was like having a rough time. I started driving for Uber. I was working in kitchens again. I was doing all this stuff that was like basically pretty unfulfilling, you know.
I kind of met you as the gig thing was crashing, as like Uber was kind of, I guess, really coming in hot, and you were trying to transition, and everything was getting funky, and
yeah.
You also were playing around with the idea of moving to TJ.
So that was the point where I was kind of like, okay, I've tried all these different things in my life. Like, I went through a phase where I thought maybe I was going to be a writer or like a stand-up comic, or like I've had a lot of ideas about doing different things with my life, and I've tried my hands at a lot of little different things.
Did you ever try stand-up?
Probably from
No way.
1996 through 1998 or something. I used to go to the comedy club in La Jolla and get little weird gigs around town every once in a while and stuff. Yeah. I tried it.
I love stand-up comedy so much, and I really do feel like there's a through line between comedy and visual arts. It's a weird thing.
For sure. I mean, depending on the artist. I mean, some of my favorite artists I love them because they have a really humorous aspect to their work. Yeah, like Klaus Oldenburg.
Oh, for sure. Oh man, the connection just got all crappy again. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Bummer. I don't know if we should just hang out and wait and see if it starts to work, but I can't hear anything. Yeah, Philip Guston too. Can you hear me, Chris? Shit. I feel like we're gonna have to. Chris just left. Let's see if we can get him back. My dog's yawning. Maybe other people are yawning too. Let's close this just for. Oh, maybe yeah. Chris is back. Hello?
Hello?
I can hear you again.
Okay, can you see me?
Yes?
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, good. Yeah, you started glitching out. You like went into a vortex and then disappeared.
But
So
what I started to say is that Jill Dossie at the Contemporary Museum did a show with this kind of connecting points for comedy and the visual arts. It was a really great show, and I'm trying to remember what the name of that show was. It'll come to me. But so that's really neat to hear that you had a background in stand-up comedy and you're struggling doing all this kind of romantic artist stuff. You definitely have the romantic artist blood.
unfortunately for me, it has not behooved me fiscally.
Well, you know, what else are we here for? It's like, you know, let it burn.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining. I don't know. I'm lucky, I guess, that I've been able to get away with spending so much time doing things that I feel passionately about, that I love to do. You know, I'm lucky that I've gotten to do that. Spend time doing that. So what were we talking about? So
Well,
so I got a phone call to ask to come to California. That's why I came to California in '97, and I played with this band here for a couple years.
Who's the band? Why won't you say it?
It was this band called Crash Worship.
Oh, I see.
I didn't want to not say it. I'm just like, I don't know. I guess I feel weird about talking about music stuff. Like, I don't know why I didn't mention the name.
Well,
anyway, yeah, I moved here to play with Crash Worship.
We can't just
have
a staring contest here. You're here to tell a story. Yeah, I mean, so what else was going on at that time? You're struggling, you're doing all this stuff. I mean, I feel like there was a moment when I think we should get into talking about the moment that you decided to say fuck it and move to TJ to try to work as a professional artist, try to make ends meet and do all this stuff.
Okay, yeah. So the Rose thing, you know, like maybe a year or a year and a half before that happened, I made a very conscious decision. Like, you know, I was getting older, and I was like, man, I have to pick something. I should pick something and just really, you know, try to focus on one thing and really try to get good at it, you know?
Yeah.
And art seemed like the most sensible thing because it was my first inclination as a kid, and I'd always done it for a hobby out of love, you know? So, and you know, and I had made some serious paintings at that point, just not real consistently, you know, more of like a Sunday painter or something. But I think also, you know, my daughter was at this certain age at the time, and we started drawing.
Don't tell me we're going to lose your signal again. I might have to finish up this interview without Chris
rest of
Wassell.
my every day for the rest of my life. So even though I was still working at the time, I was driving, but I made sure that I painted every single day,
Oh,
even if it
cool.
was only for an hour or something. I was like, I'm going to do this every day. So I started amassing some work. I started getting, you know, to the point where maybe I was like, well, maybe in a couple months down the line, I'll have enough work that it'll look good together as a show. So, but I was certainly not at any kind of point to start really approaching galleries or anything, you know, in the way I felt about being emerging at that point. So I had met Bells and Whistles, I think, is how I met Chelsea. That room next to the wine bar, you know, that kind of all that wall space and stuff. And
Yeah.
I just, I thought, you know, it couldn't hurt to ask if I could hang up
Right.
some paintings there for a little while. So I asked her, and she was incredibly gracious about it. She was stoked on it. She helped me with the whole thing. She was like just an absolute pleasure to work with. And I completely promoted the whole thing myself, you know.
Hmm. I think sometimes it's the only way to get something done. Ooh, really bad. This is a rough one.
Which was kind of like my version of my little catalog, I guess, for the show. Um, but it ended up being not only well attended, but I sold 80% of the work.
Hmm.
So that was incredibly encouraging to me. It was also around the same time I started noticing, like, hey, these people I know are actually selling their work on Instagram. They're
Huh.
selling paintings on the internet and stuff. Like, maybe I could really do this. Like when I was in high school and art school, like way back before pre-technology, you
Yeah.
know, being a professional painter seems like about as probable as winning the lottery, you know? It just
Well,
seemed like
it still is.
an impossible dream. But now that we're all connected and it's wreaked havoc on the gallery system and everybody is so like instantly exposed to each other's work, like there's a lot of new ways that people can make this work for themselves if they figure out their own particular niche, you
I
know,
I
like
can't believe how
like
optimistic you
Etsy
are.
and like all kinds of stuff, you know.
Yeah, you are super optimistic. It's really neat to see and hear that. I think that's the artist blood in you. Um,
Well, you got to just try to adapt.
yeah. Um, let's talk about some of your work. There's a painting behind you, and I know a lot of people um, have already purchased your stuff on the Bread and Salt artist site, where 100% of the proceeds are going to the artist. We've been trying to support you at Bread and Salt to make sure that you um, feel like you have what you need, supplies and stuff. We've been planning a solo exhibition with you, but we've had to put a hard hold on that date. It was actually supposed to be July, but
Yeah.
we don't want to commit to any date because we don't want to have to backtrack and
Of course,
figure out
that's
all these.
completely understandable.
Yeah, so
And I want to let you know that I'm so appreciative of the support that you guys have been giving me, and in every sense.
yeah, it's
It means
all.
so much. It's so encouraging to me, and it gives me so much validation to what I'm, you know, trying to do with my life. It's been really amazing. And the website thing is incredible. And I'm really optimistically hoping that like you guys can kind of expand that and beef it up a lot. I think you could sell a lot of work online.
Yeah.
For me in particular, when I sell work online, like I don't have a place to go Like my website doesn't have a sales thing. Like you can't like go look at my work somewhere and just like push a button and buy it online, you know? And that's a problem for some people. You know, I usually work things out personally between, you know, private messaging or
Right.
however. So like it's so awesome that you're doing this bread and salt thing for artists and giving, because that's hard for some people, and to give options, to have options for those artists. I mean, I hope that this whole thing is over quickly and you can continue doing it and you guys can make some money off of it too, you know. But it's just like it's awesome
Well,
to have. I mean, just right now I understand what's going on and what you're doing and everything. I'm just saying it's a good model. I think it's a good business model as an adjunct to the gallery, you know, that could turn into a, you know, potentially really
yeah, I mean,
really great thing.
a brick and mortar gallery will still be needed in a community. It's a gathering place. It's a meeting place for performance or all kinds of stuff. It's not just a place to sell work. So, you know, as far as I know, the plan for Bread and Salt to come back and still be the same old meeting place for artists and community, it's going to be the same old thing. But we'll have this new component where we try to do live interviews, and we'll have a store and all that kind of stuff. So we have learned a lot from doing and dealing with the whole quarantine thing. So let's talk about the paintings and the works on paper and stuff. Like, I know a lot of times you might find a scrap piece of paper. You might be using, you know, a piece of graphite one moment, or you might be using an oil stick or whatever. What do you normally go for? Like, what do you gravitated towards as far as materials and how you make work?
Well, with that kind of stuff, like small stuff on paper, that stuff usually like it's like I'll get an idea that I have to translate pretty quickly, so I'll tend to just grab whatever is closest to me to execute that. I generally don't put a lot of thought into that. For my paintings, for a long time I worked with acrylics and water-based stuff
Yeah.
because of the messiness factor, and I really like to do layering stuff, and it dries so fast you can, you know, just really quickly like go back over stuff. You know, you could paint an area and then like 10 minutes later you can do a charcoal drawing on top of it and paint over it again. It's like you can go really fast. But at some point, I think I started getting a little more interested in the surface quality of my paintings, and there's nothing that beats the tasty quality of oil paints. Just the way oil paints reflect light and look on a surface it's kind of magical, and it's more like hardcore. Like it reminds me of like skating vertical or something like that.
Yeah.
Like being really good at like vert skating. It's like it's hardcore. Like you have to work with solvents and oils and like
Yeah.
there's fumes and like it completely destroys your wardrobe and like gets all over your everything. It's like
I love that.
it's hardcore.
Yeah, it took me years and years and years and years to appreciate vert skating. I thought it was for dorks, you know, when I was skateboarding, and now as an adult, I mean, it's just like it is like the nitty gritty of skateboarding. It's a really neat thing. Can you see these photos I just put up? I'm trying something new.
Yeah, I can see you with like a photo behind you. That's interesting.
Well, that's
cool.
your piece.
It is. I recognize it.
Okay.
Somebody bought that. Somebody bought that the other night.
Yeah, and you know, these are new customers to Bread and Salt, so these are people that just felt inspired. I mean, I see a lot of familiar names and things like that of people that have supported Bread and Salt and you in the past, but yeah, a lot of new people that are feeling inclined to support some artists. So this is a bad way to show the photos, but it's a neat way to show the surface on these works on paper. So, you know, you can see you're using oil stick and like all kinds of stuff on there. It's like, it's you're like attacking the paper.
Yeah, I think that one is oil paint and maybe Conte.
Oh, okay.
Probably Conte and oil paint, I think, on like cardstock.
I
I had a stack of brown cardstock lying around, and I just use that.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely hate Conte, but you're not using it how a professional might. You're just kind of using it as like a way to get some color on the paper.
Oh, sure. I use it like it's a charcoal pencil or something.
Yeah. Um, so who are some of the artists that you look to? Um, somebody just asked you like Philip Guston.
Oh, I love Philip Guston.
Oh,
Yeah.
Guston, huh?
Is it Guston or Guston? I
don't
always
know.
say Guston just because like I like to sound like an aristocrat.
Van Gogh. I've heard that.
Yeah, Guston's incredible. Especially the way he switched gears midway through his career, I think is just incredible.
Yeah.
You know, his abstract work, his early abstract work is so great.
Yeah.
You know, and then he really switched gears and started doing all that weird figurative stuff. His life story is really interesting too. He had a hard life.
Yeah, there's some great little YouTube documentaries and stuff. Do you have any other artists that you love to look at or you're excited about or?
Sure. I mean, for my own work, I try to draw influences from other mediums rather than I really like that Basquiat quote where he says, "When I paint, I try not to think about painting. I try to think about life."
Yeah.
I think about that a lot, you know. So I think my painting influences have a lot more to do with music and film and literature, I would say. But of course, there's paintings that I feel an affinity towards that I love. And right now, I would say it'd be like, well, de Kooning has always been one of my big ones. De Kooning and Arshil Gorky.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm just bananas about Cy Twombly. I love Cy. I'm kind of so bummed out right now that I don't have a big Cy Twombly book because
yeah, you know what I really love with Cy Twombly too of you the Cy Twombly sculptures. I don't know if you've seen some of that stuff, but
oh, they're amazing.
Yes.
I just got turned on to those. They're incredible.
Yeah, they're so cool.
They're incredible.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the first time I've seen some of your works on paper, they feel so aligned with Basquiat. Do you ever feel like you're tapping into something a little too much, or do you like kind of like delving into that kind of feeling?
Okay, there's definitely, I think a lot of art right now is sort of like going through this post Basquiat thing, and that he kind of like I think he changed a lot of rules when he did his thing, and I love his paintings a lot.
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm kind of the thing that I'm influenced by him about. And I do sometimes I try to make sure like I don't want to like be biting him too hard or too noticeably or whatever.
Right.
But the thing that I really like, I mean, I like everything about his paintings. His narratives are great. His drawings are incredible. But what I really am influenced by with him is his use of space, the way he blocks out areas of space with color, which I feel is like a real natural extension of Picasso's synthetic cubist period, which was like the last phase of cubism, you know, where things got like a lot more defined. There's a lot less modeling, you know, there were more like flat shapes and pattern shapes and things like that. And you could really see like the planar quality of the planes in front of each other. You know, like if you look at that painting, the Three Musicians, that's a good example of a synthetic cubist painting. And I feel like, to me, it looks like Basquiat ran with that idea of space the way he incorporates his forms and establishes his spatial construction. So
I mean,
that's
I
kind of
think
like the main vocabulary of his that I guess I'd be employing. Like, you know, doing that is close enough to him that like I will never ever put like a crown in one of my
right.
paintings, you know, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm definitely influenced by him in a sense. Hopefully not too much. I mean, and I think, you know, the longer you work and the more you work, the better you get and the more yourself that you get. I mean, we all have to have influences. It's
Yeah,
just like
I love this.
how do you learn how to play music? You know, you have to learn how to play other people's songs
Yeah.
to like learn how to play an instrument.
I
You
love
know,
this quote. I don't know where it came from, but the secret to creativity is being able to hide your influences. You know, it's like everybody's has a guilty pleasure in what they do, but you know, some
sure,
people are just better at not
yeah,
tipping their hat to it.
sure. Yeah, it sucks when it's really obvious and it really like it really takes away from your work.
No, but I think
when
what you're
when
doing,
the influences are super obvious.
I think what you're doing is totally original. I'm just saying I can see the, you know, the feeling in there. I mean, I'm guilty of a lot of stuff, of liking a lot of artists. Do you ever have trouble looking at too much art? Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's hard to look at a lot of art as an artist. I myself kind of pull back. I'm surrounded by art 24 hours a day, but you know, in my studio, I try to just think about what I'm doing, and not so much a lot of other people's work. So what can you tell us
Yeah,
about your
I
process?
have
What do you do to get ready to paint?
I have I have a couple art books lying around in my studio, but I don't generally look at them. Like the books that I would reference in my studio are like a book of Baudelaire poetry and like some James Joyce and like maybe some Lautréamont or like I don't know, stuff like that. Um,
So you pull from writing sometimes.
yeah, I think literature is a great source of content.
Do you write nowadays? Do you write about art? Do you write anything? I know at one time you said that you wanted
Not
to write.
enough. Writing is very laborious for me. It takes a really long time. I spend a lot of time re-editing and stuff, and it's not the most enjoyable process. It's like it feels like hard work. Like I appreciate it and I like it, but it's really hard. It doesn't come really as like painting feels natural and good to me. You know, there's certain things about it too that like I think trigger some kind of what is that called, AMSR thing or something. There's certain things like certain sensations or whatever
No.
like there's this one thing when I have like a dry broad flat brush and I get some oil paint on there that's like pure oil paint, maybe right out of the tube, real thick
Yeah.
oil paint, and I have this kind of dry brush and I'm putting the first marks on some canvas that I've gessoed by myself. And like I like a little bit of a rough surface, so I don't like sand my gesso or anything. So it's almost like my surface quality is almost like really super fine sandpaper or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this scratchy sensation of like that kind of dry brush going on that particular surface that just like I'm just wild about it. I think about it when I'm going to sleep. It's just like I love it so much.
Yeah, and I just kind of had like a Bob Ross moment just listening to you. I kind of was like, I know that feeling because I grew up painting too. I mean, I know what it's like to, you know, prime my own canvas and stretch, you know, and also that first application of paint on a toothy canvas, you know, I know that feeling.
Yeah, it's very special.
Yeah, it's really
It
neat.
just it has this really there's a specific tactile quality too that it has that just like that I'm just like wild about.
Yeah, that's cool. What else can be said? What's it like living in TJ? You know, I've been to your studio down there. It's really beautiful. You know, you're not just like roughing it down there. You have a really nice house in a beautiful neighborhood that's you know, right in the nitty-gritty of downtown TJ basically. Um,
Well, it's like a 20-minute walk from downtown, but
yeah, I guess I drove there.
love living in Tijuana. I I wish I had found out about this situation earlier at some point. I moved down here for economic reasons. I had been in the same house in City Heights for like 10 years, you know, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Hey, we're gonna raise your rent like $300," and like, "You've already been late this many times, blah blah blah. I don't think you can really like, I don't think you're gonna be able to handle it
Yeah.
or whatever." That's what they were kind of saying to me, and I was like, "Well, can I try to handle it?" And they were like, "Yeah, you can try or whatever," but I ended up like it didn't end well, and I had to move out of that place. I I couldn't afford the upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was at that time, and also that coincided with the time it was like right after the Rose show, and I was starting to sell privately stuff online. So I was like, maybe if I found a way to do this full time, you know, full time somehow. So I started looking into TJ and found out that like an acquaintance of mine was also looking to move down here too. So we sort of teamed up and started researching it and got really lucky and found this great place. And so, like I said, I moved down here for economic reasons, but I've stayed here because I've just completely fallen in love with the people and the culture. And like, I might never leave now, unless to maybe go to Mexico City or something, or if I get a chance to move to Tokyo or Rome or something cool like that. But I really, really love TJ. I think it's a great place, and the people here are so just cool and like they've been very warm. The neighborhood I live in is just a bunch of families and like you know, a lot of street vendors selling tacos and little mom and pop stores. Really nice little neighborhood. Everything I need is here.
Cool.
And the clubs are fun. Like it's really fun for me learning about all the cultural stuff because I never really had much of a connection to like South American culture before, not having any of it in my family or like, you know, I don't think I ever like dated a girl who was full on from South America or Mexico or whatever. So there's just
how's your Spanish
a lot of stuff slowly. I'm learning a lot of slang.
Do you also speak Japanese?
A little bit. Sometimes the two get jumbled up and that makes it more difficult. I have a lot of times where I'm trying to think of like the verb for something and all I can think of is the Japanese word for it. It's like, it's kind of hard. But
well, I think we should end it. The connection's getting crappy again. But
okay.
I just want to say that, you know, it's been great working with you. It's been great to visit with you and TJ every time we go down there. We're going to be adding more of your work to the Bread and Salt artist site. So, yeah, everybody go check out the artist site, and which it's in the link in the bio for Instagram, or you could go to Bread and Salt San Diego. And yeah, I actually changed my camera angle today because I'm at home. I was in my Eames chair, and people didn't like me pointing the camera at my brick wall. So I decided to put a piece of artwork up. I have a photograph of Saulo Cisneros. He's an artist that lives and works in TJ.
I know who Saulo is.
It's a really great photograph.
I was going to ask you if that was an Ed Ruscha behind you.
That'd be cool.
Did you hear that? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know who
No,
Solo
it's
is.
a
That's
solo
cool.
photograph, which
It's nice. It's
it's a
good.
photo. It's a photo of the Moulin Rouge club that was in TJ that burned down, and he just happened to be driving by and stopped and took this incredible photo of the Moulin Rouge bar burning. Uh,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's such a cool photo, and it was part of an edition that we had at Bread and Salt. Yeah, it's a really neat photograph.
If I could just say really quick, I have derived so much inspiration from the architecture in Tijuana. It's unbelievable.
Oh man, I stood on
I
your
walk around and take pictures all the time, and like it's just like it's very, very inspiring for me
yeah, and
to be here
I
as
stood
an
on your
artist.
balcony at your house, and you're up on a hill and just looking over, looking over off your balcony. It's like it's this beautiful kind of hilltop view of just other old balconies and electrical wires, and just like it's such an incredible thing that's going on down there. It's like this collage of architecture and infrastructure that is very romantic.
Yeah, it's great.
We
Our porch is, we lucked out with that porch. Our porch is awesome.
Yeah,
Like we spend a lot of time
you got some
out hanging
beautiful
out.
little dogs too. Okay,
Yeah.
this is a serious
All right.
question.
Well,
Can you end with a joke?
thank you. Thank you for everything, Tom. I appreciate it. That was a
Yeah.
really enjoyable interview, and I really hope that Bread and Salt can weather these tragic circumstances that we're in. I'm trying to remain optimistic and just hope that in a couple months things will get back to some kind of normalcy.
Yeah, I mean, keep
But
doing
it's
what
impossible to speculate about what's going to happen right now. Like
Right.
all we can do is kind of just wait and see what happens.
Right.
So we might as well try to make the most of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely going to keep making art. I mean, I don't know what else to do with myself, and if I'm going to go out, that's how I want to go out.
Yeah, man. Okay, end with a joke. Tell us a joke.
That's not really the way my comedy works. Like I had set lists and stuff and segues and things like that.
Give me a break. You're telling me that you're a stand-up and you don't have a joke?
Well, it's kind of like, which joke do I pick?
I don't know. You have 30 seconds before I press end. Well,
I'm going to
this
pass
is
the
funny.
joke thing, Tom.
All right. Talking with you. I'm gonna put this up on YouTube and
Okay. Here's one. This a guy with no arms. I was going into this bar, and I noticed that they were kicking this guy out of this bar, and he didn't have any arms. I was like, Jesus. I went in and I went up to the bartender and I was like, "What's with you guys? That poor guy. He already has it so rough. Why are you kicking that guy out of here?" And the bartender said, "Well, that guy can't really hold his liquor."
Uh-huh. That was pretty good. All right. Thanks, Chris. See ya. Bye.
Thanks for everything, Tom.
See ya.
See you soon.